It's 8:30 p.m. On Friday evening. I've had a really long day. I had to spend all day at continuing legal ed classes at a seminar for lawyers. And then there was a big dinner to go to after that. The dinner was fun. The day was long. It was just long. I mean, those things are just long. They're just long, man, you know? And as with all of these types of events, I was kind of primed for this, I guess, for this video that I'm going to make. You know, at a lot of these kinds of conventions where it's continuing legal aid or legal ed, and, you know, you have panels and discussions, and invariably the majority of people who speak on these panels are old white men, and are generally not reflective of what the legal community looks like now. And you know, and whatever, man, I'll just leave it at that. Had a couple conversations about that with some female friends of mine who are attorneys, women attorneys, people who I'm very close to, and they felt a tremendous level of frustration today. And I was aware of that while I was watching some of these panels, but not to the level that they are, because I'm not a woman. And it reminded me of a lot of things. You know, the stories, the endless stories that I heard from my mom. You know, she went to law school at night when I went to high school. I graduated from high school in 86. She graduated from law school in 87 and then began the practice of law. And she had done some clerking. And the endless number of incredibly misogynistic, sexist stories that she told me about experiences that she had. And the things that I've heard from my friend Shahana, going back 25 years, the things that I've heard from my friend Kim, and so many other, you know, really close friends of mine who are attorneys who are also women. And then, you know, so, you know, there was a little bit of that today, and it was just like, it's November 2025. Are we still fucking doing this? Or seriously? I mean, I'm a fucking caveman, and I was picking up on this shit. And it was just like, what the fuck, man? It's just old white men who are gatekeeping so many things, who just want to fucking jack each other off to their egos and accomplishments. And except for one panel that I saw today, there was one panel that I saw was great. But it's just like, how long are we going to fucking do this, man? And, you know, so I got through all that stuff today. I was really tired. I got home about 20 minutes ago. And so I opened up TikTok. And what the fuck do I see? I see Scott Galloway being interviewed by Ben Stiller. I think it's in Manhattan. It's some 92nd Street, whatever. And Ben Stiller, in his infinite wisdom, asked Scott Galloway the following question: why is it so controversial to talk about mentoring young men? Let's just start with that. I'm not aware of anywhere, any place, any time, any context where it's controversial to talk about mentoring young men. I think what Ben Stiller meant to ask was, why is it so controversial to blame young women for all of young men's problems in November of 2025? Young men who are red pilling themselves, who aren't going to college, who want to play video games for 27 hours a day, and somehow that's the fault of young women. I think would be a more accurate representation of the question that Ben Stiller was asking Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway's initial response, the first words out of his mouth were, if you go into a morgue and there are 5 people who died from suicide, 4 of them would be men. And I'm just like, I am fucking sick to death of this Scott Galloway shit. He correctly identifies the problem. He incorrectly identifies the causes. He incorrectly identifies the solutions. And it just reminds me, that response, if you go into a morgue and there are 5 people who died by suicide, 4 of them are men. That's probably true. Whose fault is that? And I'm reminded of the first. So next week is my last week as a practicing trial attorney. And his response reminded me of the first 3 years of my practice as a trial attorney. Fuck, I don't even know how long. I mean, it was 27 years ago. And I graduated from law school. I moved to Mansfield, Ohio. I had a fiance. I bought a house. I was working with my mom, who had her own law firm. And my mom did like 80% family law. And during those first 3 years, it happened on almost an annual basis. A woman who we were representing in a divorce, who was in a domestic violence situation, who had gotten a restraining order against her husband, was murdered by her husband. How many of those people in that morgue are fucking women, Scott, who had been murdered by their partners, boyfriends, or husbands? The number one cause of death for women in the United States of America while they are pregnant is being murdered by their partner, spouse, or their husband, the father of their baby. One woman, her husband snuck into her house while she was at work. He disconnected all the gas lines and he turned off her power, and he left out candles and matches on her countertop so that when she got home, tried to turn on the lights and there was no power, and she fucking lit a match to light a candle, her entire home exploded, her along with it, and she was killed. Another guy, we represented his wife, and she had a restraining order against him. He beat her to death in a parking lot with a tire iron in front of their 2 children. The third one, the husband and wife were both corrections officers in Mansfield, Ohio. They had 5 children. The oldest was 10. The husband had domestic violence charges pending against him. He had to surrender all of his firearms. That was causing him some difficulty at work. He borrowed a semi-automatic 9mm handgun from a friend of his who was a sheriff's deputy who knew that he had a domestic violence restraining order against him and had previously been ordered to give up all of his handguns. And then the husband, went to their family home where he was not allowed to be because of that restraining order, and hid in the bushes around the corner from the front porch. And when the wife came home from picking up their 5 children under the age of 10 from school, he jumped out from the bushes, came running around, and shot her multiple times in the head, killing her in front of their 5 children. He then put the barrel of that semi-automatic 9mm handgun in his own mouth and blew out the back of his own head, and they had a joint funeral that all 5 children attended. I was there. If you go into a morgue, there are 5 people who died by suicide and 4 of them are men. How many dead women are in that morgue, Scott? And how many of those dead women were murdered by their partner, boyfriend, or husband?